And those of you that are here, you see a lot of empty space. Now, I have a big mouth, but that doesn't necessarily mean everybody else does. So I'm going to please ask that you start filling up some of the spaces up here. Is there anybody that needs Spanish translations? ¿Hay alguien que necesita traducciones? Si hay alguien que necesita traducciones, por favor, levántese la mano. If there's anybody who needs Spanish translations, please raise your hand. As a no? Okay, thank you very much. Muchísimas gracias. So, as we're starting to get started, are there any other papers that anyone would like to collect? I only have 1, 2, 3. There are 2 more opportunities on the networking bingo. Did you guys talk to everybody? So we don't have more winners? Winner, chicken dinner? So, did anybody not get one of these? All right. So, our winners so far is, let me see if I can see them. Symphony, wave your hand, Symphony. Show me a Symphony. Are you at Symphony? Those who are in the back, if they can start coming towards the front. So we got Symphony as a winner. We're going to check that. We got Elsa. Elsa's another winner. Let me see Elsa right there. We got to check them. Symphony, we got to check you. And Carrie. Where's Carrie? Where's Carrie? Carrie right there. So we got 3. There's 2 more slots. 2 more still available. So you just gotta get close to the name and fill out all the boxes to get there. Wait, I'm sorry, Mama. You got yours, let's go through that. And we got Andrea. Yeah, Andrea. So we're gonna check this. So a couple of things. We are about to begin. Nosotros vamos a empezar. I ask that those who are caucusing in that reception area, if you could please find a seat towards the front. I'll take 1 moment of silence to give you an opportunity to move from that area and come into a seat. Please and thank you. Alrighty now. Few logistics, unas cuantas cositas, right? Those who need to utilize the restroom is this way towards the right side. Los baños están de este lado a mano derecha. If you need to use the restrooms, we have 1, 2, 3. I think it's 3 or 4 restrooms on this side. Okay? Please make sure to maintain the restroom clean. 1. 2, please recognize, right? It is flu season. COVID ain't no joke. And she likes to visit every once in a blue. Still. So please.
Not today.
Not today. There are masks in the front. If you feel more comfortable, we ask that you please mask. Masking is not a requirement. No es requerido que se ponga una máscara, but we do ask for your safety and for the safety of others. Please wear your mask, especially if you're not feeling too good. Okay? If you okay. We want to make sure we are all good. Okay? So again, can somebody put their hands up? Look, if you want a mask, just raise your hand. We're happy to pass the mask over to you. Safety first. Remember that. So we got the restrooms, we've got the masks. Please make sure that all of you have signed in. If you have not RSVP, feel free to give your information to the front. In the front, there is a series of papers that give you a little bit of information. Atrás hay papeles con mucha información, right? On one of those papers, just as you're here, while you're here, mientras ustedes están aquí, there's one that talks about a housing forum and it has a QR code. There's a survey in that QR code. When you have an opportunity, please fill out that survey. Por favor, llene esa encuesta. This helps us a lot to figure out next steps in the work that we do. Eso ayuda mucho en las próximas cosas que hacemos. Also, in the back, you see how they've been bringing out some of these to the front? On your own, esto es para ti, right? Very quickly. There's a series of questions that are up there. You don't have to say it nicely. You don't have to say it pretty. You have to say it the way you want to say it in your own voice. right? A la manera que eres tú y en tu voz. I want you to tell us, how do you feel about these different things? What is reimagining public safety to you, right? If that means saying, screw ABC, well then write screw ABC, right? But we need your honest voice. We want to hear what you have to say. I don't need, well, I believe that this, no. Tell me exactly what you think, because that's how we can fight, right? Tell us, what is reimagining public safety to you? What are resources your community needs the most, right? We have lots of resources. There's food pantries everywhere. But does that mean that's the only resource we need? What are other things that you see in your community that you haven't normally seen? Then we have, what is reimagining family support? Recognize that we have ACS. Recognize that we have FECs, Family Enrichment Centers. Recognize that we have not enough child care, or we have too much child care, or we don't have caregiving support services for our elderly parents that doesn't let us work, or we can't be a home health aide. I'm just giving you suggestions, right? So what does community support, what does reimagining family support look like in this new day? Then we have, what is community policing and support look like for you? Now, we use the word policing, but don't recognize that it always has to be a police officer. It can also be mom, right? Like, oh, you acted up, I'm taking you to your mama's house, right? I call that community support, right? I'm gonna go talk to your auntie because you just been acting up a little too much. I don't like you so attitude, right? What does support look like to you? Be honest about it. And it doesn't have to be in the perfect wording. If you use curse words, that's perfectly fine. They're words too. I want to hear your anger. I want to visibly see that. Right? And then here, this is another big question that, believe it or not, many people have been grappling with in the city. What do immigrants, especially new immigrants, need to thrive in New York City? Right? Too many people have been getting pitted against each other. And we're all human beings who deserve dignity and respect. And through that vein, I ask you, what do people need to thrive in this city? That's all going to be on Post-its. You don't have to tell us about it. You don't have to talk directly to other people about that at this moment. But I ask that you go up to the front when you have an opportunity, before you leave out of here. Fill out a Post-it and put it up there so that we can have a visual in the way that we do our work and navigate how we work with you in community. Right? So we'll let you know the winners for the networking bingo at the very end. We're going to take a look at this, and we're going to move along with the program, and we'll have more opportunities to have some fun. And if you can see, pay attention. I'm an eye contact person. I go, yeah. I do that because I want to hear from you. We came this evening to talk to each other. So I'm going to ask that if you're the type of person that doesn't usually speak, I need you to speak today. If you're the type of person like me, that we talk a whole lot, we want to ask you, step back, kind of talking so much. So I'm shut up for a while. All right? So it's step up, step up. Step up your speaking skills if you're someone that doesn't like to speak, right? And step up your listening skills if you're a person that, like me, that likes to talk a lot. All right? And I'm going to pass it over to Brittany, and she's going to kick this whole fun world off. Okay?
As soon as I start walking.
But give yourselves a round of applause just for being here today. On a regular day.
Thank you. Not too. All right. My voice is not as loud as Carmen, so I'm going to use a mic tonight, but I'm going to be brief. So, my name is Brittany McCoy. I am the Managing Director of Policy at the Bronx Defenders, and this is going to be our 5th annual Community Policy Summit. So I want to say thank you to everybody for coming out. For this to be our 5th annual one, that's a big deal. So please give yourselves a round of applause. Yeah. So I first want to start off by shouting out my policy and organizing team. So if you are sitting, can you please stand and let everybody see what you all look like? So day in and day out, we have our policy and organizing team who are attorneys and advocates who work day in and day out either in court or in the legislative aspect to make sure that we're fighting on behalf of the Bronx. And that isn't the easiest job within this climate because there's so many things that are going on these days. And our policy summit is when we come together with the community to make sure that we're keeping our posts to the ground. We want to make sure that we're listening to what's going on. We want to make sure that our campaigns and all of our legislation meets what actually needs to happen day in and day out. So I'm going to be a little brief because we're running behind on time, and I want to make sure you have the time to hear from the entire team, see what we're working on, and we want to hear from you. We don't want to talk at you all day. We don't want to lecture you all. That's not the vibe for tonight. The vibe is to make sure that we're in community, we're talking to each other. As much as you are hearing from us, you all should be talking to each other. Everybody here is a part of the same community, and the only way that we can get the change that we need is if we work together. So again, I want to welcome you guys to the space, and we're going to get started. We have one of our wonderful attorneys who is going to continue to help us open up the space, Imani, and he's going to start off with some spoken word.
Yeah.
How y'all doing? Y'all good?
Yeah.
Can everybody hear me fine?
Yeah.
All right, so no mic is needed?
No.
All right, as you heard, my name is Imani. I am a fifth year and a supervising attorney here at the Bronx Defenders. When I'm not being a lawyer, I'm being a poet, and I perform spoken word throughout the city. I actually have a show coming up on Friday. If you have questions, come holler at me. But yeah, so this poem is very poignant for this event today, as it's about what we do as lawyers. And if I can take a quick poll real quick, how many of you know someone who's been arrested before? And hands down. How many of you know someone who's been arrested and then went to jail? How many of you know somebody who's been arrested and went to jail and prison? How many of you are lawyers or advocates and have been asked the question, how can you defend those people? So this poem is hopefully an attempt to answer that question. Today is sowing day, the moment that every seed dreams of. I watched as my brothers were planted into good soil. One to a mom and a dad married 5+ years, another a bank account in his name before he bud his first leaf. And my sister, 7 o'clock home cooked dinners every day. I mean, be home before the street lights come on kind of home. But I wasn't that lucky. I was dropped along the path, stuck between rock and hard place, but still I grew. This is the other side of the parable. My soil was a mother addicted to crack. My father a fiction, imaginary and untrue. From child to currency, my value depended on my foster home. A parade of strangers who never remembered my birthday. You see, for some, the cards are stacked against them. For me, I never made the shuffle. Wasn't worthy of a family's heart. Never inherited diamonds. Always the joker, never the king. Demanding to get paid in full, call me ace now. The blocks became my barricade. Hugged by homies, more than mama for them, I would do anything. By 14, I could convert grams to ounces, but couldn't name the 18th presidents. I never studied sonnets and prose, but knew the difference between a Glock 9 and a Beretta, and will never forget the first time I used one. You see, when you aren't taught to value your own life, it becomes that much easier to take one. I represent people accused of committing crimes for a living. Often, they are guilty. Sometimes have caused real harm. About once a month, I get asked the question, how can you defend these people? I tell them, I defend these people because confinement doesn't have to look like a cage. A room small as a queen-size mattress, covered in feces, food beyond expired, eyes beaten to muddy waters, suicide pit bodies like a pickup game. Each morning of who got next, I tell them that white supremacy is a college and prisons are just a dorm for black people. I told them that punishment in America is a museum of vengeance designed to deter, but instead detracts and destructs. The Department of Corrections doesn't correct, it collects black and brown bodies and then brags to the world how great they are at it. For those of you who think jails are justified, have you ever been to one? Do you know what forgotten smells like? Have you seen death in the eyes of the condemned? Do you see the slave master in the warden's walk? If you think that cages can harbor humans, maybe you are the animal. If eye were for an eye, how blind would you be? Would your body be without blemish? Your stones too heavy to cast? I defend these people because no baby was born a bully, and every felon was first a friend, a prize, pure and unpolished, a child who loved and was loved back, because redemption is more than a song, it's instruction. The 11th commandment that we treat as afterthoughts, a reminder that even Saul got saved, even Tookie taught through his terror, because mercy is a birthright that can't be stolen or taken back. I defend these people because they're my people, and despite what you may think, they are every bit human as you are. Thank you.
Can we keep it going for Imani? Can we give him another round of applause? So I'm going to keep the program going. Shannon, can we get started on the presentation? So you're now going to hear from our policy and organizing team. We're going to start off with organizing and community engagement.
There you go. So, I am the director of organizing, Carmen Pinheiro. This is my wonderful colleague, and this is?
Shannon Barber.
And while we are separate, we are still alike. The director of community engagement is Alicia Anthony. Alicia? Ow! Those of you who know Alicia, come on, let's give her a shout out. She is also the director of the Bronx Leadership Organizing Center. So just as a bit of a breakdown so that you guys understand organizing and community engagement, please recognize that the Bronx, and I'm gonna say it very quickly so we can move quickly. You can tell I talk fast, right? So let us recognize that the Bronx Defenders is a holistic public defender organization that covers various practices. But one of the things to really understand is that we do service, advocacy, and organizing. That means we also provide benefits to folks and resources, and then we have our advocates, which are the attorneys and the advocates, the regular advocates that we have. But then we also do organizing, which means that we're working with folks collectively to build upon issues that we see particularly that happens within the courtroom setting and within the streets. So there's a difference with organizing, grassroots organizing, that looks at a particular issue in just the community. What we do is that we look at the issues in the community that pertain directly to the systems of justice. So that means within the courtroom system and within the laws and policies that we see that just don't make sense for communities like ours, of people of color, right? So we work and engage with the community and our entire policy team on all of these different issues. We host and present at community forums and town halls. We meet with elected officials. We provide support and information. We offer Know Your Rights training. So those of you who are thinking about having a Know Your Rights training for your people, you get me 10, 15 people in the living room, and I'm gonna go over to you. I promise that, okay? You gather the folks, you organize them, we'll make sure they learn their rights and they get the training that they need, all right? And we offer resources to thousands of South Bronx residents and beyond. We participate in citywide events to support our campaign work. That means that yes, we are on the front lines. We're going to the protests. We're doing testimonies. We're hanging the signs, right? We're in the background. We're doing that. And we work with coalitions to build collective power on issues. We can't do this work alone. There's many people that are doing this type of work, and those that align with our belief system and the work that we do within the organization, we definitely work in coalition to build power on those issues. And we go out to press conferences, protests, and direct actions that highlight our campaigns. There's some photos there that you'll be able to see. Any questions that you have or any participation that you want to do. If you want to volunteer, give me a call. You want to go out to a testimony, do a protest, participate in something, give us a call, right? We will definitely bring you in and have you participate in that. And just as another call of action, we're going to be going to Albany. So those of you, if you like what you see and what you hear, let me know. Join us in Albany. Thank you.
Can y'all hear me? Okay, good, because I think I got it. Okay, thank you. All right, I had to watch the cord.
You might, you're gonna get a mic, guys.
Hi,
They need
I
the
need the
mic.
mic. I need the mic.
Yes. They can't hear you in the back.
Can you hear us?
Yeah.
All right, my name is Sean. I work in the Family Defense Practice Policy.
And my name is Desiree Wright. I'm a policy and parent advocate here with the Bronx Offenders. We also have our director in policy. She's not here right now. Her name is Miriam Mack. And then we have Jessie McLaughlin, who is counsel in policy as well. And then we have Zoe Russell, who is here. She is our EJW fellow and policy counsel as well. Today, we want to talk to you a little bit about, oh, I gotta talk more. Okay, all right. So just 1 minute. Okay, so what we do here is we are trying to find ways to shrink the family policing system, honoring the autonomy and dignity of parents and caretakers and the fundamental right for familial integrity, shifting power back to families and away from the policing system. Here, we know that ACS is not support. FDP is about abolishing ACS and advocating for real supports for families. How do we do that? We see it every day. We see that community helps community. Shifting the narrative away is so great for us because that's what we want to do. We want to take and shift the narrative to make people believe that they're not alone. Like everybody here gets ACS cases. Why? Because they target only our communities. I know that because I see it every day in the cases that come in to our courtrooms, right? He's a counsel, he sees it every day. They only target us for racism. It is not because you are a bad parent. I want to erase that narrative today. Here, we stop that, right? Y'all are not bad parents. Y'all are good parents. This system is racist. Also, that breaks the isolation, right? That breaks it here in this room today. I don't want anybody to think that they are bad parents. There is no such thing as bad parents. We wasn't born and had our babies to be bad parents. ACS paints that narrative to make the world believe that they're needed, but they're not. We help each other. We have a lot of policy too. I want to run it. Sorry, y'all.
Go to
Thanks, Des, for all that. So,
Shannon.
does that mic work too? Does both the mics work?
Yes.
Okay, so Des used a couple words that I kind of want to talk about, and I want to get people's perspectives about it, right? So, as an attorney in the family defense practice, and for Des as a parent advocate in the family defense practice, every single day we represent parents when ACS is accusing people of neglecting their children, right? And so the phrase that Des used, family policing, is what we use to describe what other people called the child welfare system. We don't call it the child welfare system because it does not make children well. It harms families. And so what we want to find out from y'all, and in interest in having this be a community space, is when you all think of ACS, what comes to mind? What are the words, the feelings? What can you share with us?
Oh shit, here's trouble.
Okay. Oh shit, here's trouble. Right, and I think a lot of parents feel that way. Erica. State-sanctioned kidnappings.
Child abuse?
Child abuse.
Violation, when ACS came to my parents, they do a lot of body searches. So you have to lift up your shirt, your pants to show your entire body to people you don't even know.
Thank you. I appreciate you sharing that because a lot of people act as if these investigations aren't that invasive. Think about getting taken away.
My son said this, pedophiles. They actually think they ask little kids to think they go.
Right. Somebody comes to your house, says that you did something to your kid, and then does something way more invasive as a stranger, right? And so one of our roles is we work with parents when ACS has knocked on the door and has already invaded people's rights and brought them here. right? And so some of the policy initiatives that we're trying to work on, a lot of the things that you all said, were things that like we want to stop from happening before they even occur, right? And we have some different ways, or some different legislation we want to talk about, get thoughts about. So Des, can you talk a little bit about family Miranda and what that means?
Okay, so anybody here know their rights with ACS, returning to ACS? Like, so, nobody know that they have rights in here?
Go ahead.
Oh, so you don't know that ACS does not have a right to come into your home?
I mean, unless somebody call.
No, okay, so that's why we need to get into Miranda.
Yeah.
So that's what Miranda is. Miranda is a bill that would allow, what that ACS would have to verbally or with a written report, let you know that they do not have a right to come into your home without a court order or a parent advocate support counsel with you. So you have those rights, but they don't tell you those rights. Why? Because they want to just come in. But once you know your rights, you keep your family safe.
And so that's one of the things that we're trying to make sure everybody's aware of, and we're trying to do with legislation, right? Because it's commonly known, right? If you're arrested, the police have to read you your Miranda rights. You can probably recite what they are, right? If the police come to your house, they have to give you a warrant. ACS, the Administration of Children's Services, under the guise of child welfare, right, comes to the house and tries to pressure people, right? And so what we're saying is there are these rights that you can refuse entry, but we want to make it clear that, you know, you all know that, you can tell people that, but that they actually affirmatively, just like a cop, they are police, they are the family police, have to tell you that. So that's one of the pieces of legislation that we're trying to get passed.
We also have, yeah.
How much time do we have?
Okay. What's the next one?
Okay, so Des, why don't we pivot to this? So we were talking about, these are the things that ACS does right now that aren't helpful, right? We talked a little bit about those things. What can we imagine would be ways that, maybe not ACS, but a different system or just community? What are things that families and children actually need? Like, what can people think of there? Resources. Okay.
So you're asking like outside of ACS, like not even thinking about the system, just what other people in the community.
Sure, because if we want to create a system that addresses people's needs, that doesn't harm people, what do they need? So when you say resources, what do you think of?
Well, that's fast, because especially in the Bronx, we get the least of everything and kind of pay the most and suffer the most. So everything from like support with healthcare, we have healthcare disparities here, everything from leadership development from organizations like yourself and organizations like ours, which are one of the community. You know, I think first for me, what I highlight the most is the education. I think the people in our community are so busy and so bogged down with systemic racism and these systems we're already a part of, that even when we have calls to action like this, how many people are prepared to show up? You're thinking about childcare, you're thinking about how my lights getting cut off, you're thinking about you just got progress reports, you just got off of a long shift, you got to do homework with your kids. There's so many things in place before we even get to a space of having clear mental space to even reach resources. So I would put that leadership development and create the space for that happening.
Brilliant. Love that. So many ideas in that.
I love that you said that. I'm gonna get to you. I love that you said that because that's just why we're here today, right? Because in order for our voices to be heard in Albany, right? And we're telling them that this affects our community and it's only 10 of us back here, they're looking at us like, where's the community, right? And so it's power in numbers. And I'm a big believer in power in numbers, right? And I want this year to be strong for us with FDP, right? I want ACS out of here. Bad as hell. Sorry, y'all. Like, I just can't stand these people. They police us heavily. Like, how do we get to a point where we can get rid of these people? We need our community to back us up, right? Bronx defenders, we're gonna go every day to Albany if we have to, sleet, snow, or hell. But we need our community to come up, step up, show out with us. Let them know that they're oppressing us. Heavy, because they are. Let them know that poverty is not neglect. Let them know this. Let them hear from you. let them hear from the constituents, because guess what? Lawmakers are scared to be voted out. We need your voices on the forefront with us. Because nothing about us should be without us.
That's right. Was it symphony? Right?
I feel like an issue that we have in the community is that I feel like an issue that we have in the community is that we don't get paid enough, because in class we were doing this project, it's called the cost of living in the Bronx, and technically you're only supposed to pay 30% of your rent. And if we're talking about, if we get paid like $50 an hour, like 16, you would really only get paid like $700. You're only supposed to pay $720 for your rent. But here in the Bronx, it's way overpriced, and like it's causing like many families to struggle. Like for example, like from personal experience, my mom, she has to work 2 jobs just for her to even afford for all 4 of us to live in the house together. And like I find it ridiculous that like I don't see my mom until like 6 o'clock in the morning. And she doesn't get home till like 10. And I feel like it's just not fair that we're not getting paid enough. Meanwhile, the people who live in Manhattan, they're getting paid way more than us.
Yeah, I think that's really helpful. I mean, has anybody here had ACS come to the house and say, hey, I'm gonna pay your rent for you? Right? That doesn't happen, right? They come and they tell you to do things, but nobody's addressing the problem that you said, which is people need resources, right? And so, we go to the last slide. Okay, so I think we can talk just very briefly about some of the other things, but a lot of these, the things that are being suggested, right, these ideas for resources, for bringing all of these other things, money that's going to ACS that should just be going to communities. To Des's point, when we have lobby days, when we have things, please come out. We can engage with, what was it?
Parents can get paid like kids pay the parents to have their own kids, because these foster parents don't even, they don't do taxes, they don't get.
Did everybody hear what she said?
Exactly right.
Alcoholic
Exactly
testing,
right.
they don't go through none of this shit, and I've seen foster parents. I know a foster parent, I clearly seen this woman, but.
So this is the microphone, I'm gonna pass it back, so those who wanna speak up,
Now,
you can just pass it.
the mandated reporting too, it's our own peoples that's calling these mandated reports, and these ACS people come, oh, if you don't let me in, I'm gonna go get the police.
Right.
Us being Spanish and blacks, like you gonna get the police, we're gonna let you in now. Because now we scared, because that's the first thing they wanna say, like you said, parents don't know their rights, and me as a paramedic kid that worked at Rising Grounds, I started learning the ropes how it is now. And it's sad because I was a victim to that, but I had to survive over that. And it is just crazy. Like, to me, it starts with the mandated reporters. Because if anybody can go and take that 4-hour class and just call ACS and say, hey, this child's being abused. So, how can you prove that? Just because I have a certificate stating that? That doesn't give you a right to just call us and use it against, but that's my opinion. I just have to say that because I didn't hear none about mandated reporters, and it's these phone calls. It's the phone calls within our own communities as well. There should be a way that the same way if you call 911, they can see where your address is. There's something that they should do with that right there to know that if it's a joke or if it's actually true. And it starts with it starts with that phone call. It really does.
Perfect. So I, from what you're saying, I'm pulling out 2 things there, right? One of the things, why can't we just pay parents? And certainly, why are people being mandated to report, right? Exactly. Instead of a cost, right? Sorry, Linda.
I'm sorry, my name is Andrea Ortiz.
Andrea.
Thank you. I have 2 quick things I want to lift up.
Sure.
I know we're moving fast, and I'm with y'all.
No, that's what we're here for.
Okay. When people think about ACS, a lot of times we think about like, oh, a mandated reporter, a teacher, and we think about a community. But there's also fear tactics that are used in our community. So, for example, something like COVID, a lot of people were extremely afraid and are still afraid. Well, I've known of cases personally that, let's say if a parent exercises their right to not vaccinate their child because that's their choice. Now, something like COVID, we're all afraid, we're scared, so now we're judging. Now, oh, you're not vaccinated? Oh my God, what are you doing? You don't belong in this space. So there have been cases where doctors have said, oh, you don't vaccinate your child? I'm gonna call ACS on you. Not only that, when a ACS worker tells a doctor, you can't call ACS on a parent for that. Well, she got a little loud when she was in there. Okay, now you got a case, let's go. You know what I'm saying? So this is why I think that education piece, spaces like this, and not to say it's not enough, but it's really not enough. Like, we have to develop our people. We don't understand what's going on. We're so stressed in our everyday lives. If we don't get developed, we're not gonna find the passion to really fight, y'all. We caught up in every day. Something else that y'all said that I thought of, actually the thought left. So when it comes back, I'll reach back out. Sorry, I get passionate and then it's like,
Sounds good.
all
We'll be around.
right,
We'll be
gotcha.
around.
I'll
Thank
be in
you.
my past.
Sir, you had something you wanted to say?
Sure, I forgot what it was, what the, I was wondering if it was possible to change the law so that you require multiple complaints before ACS can make a move on the family.
So let's talk about a little bit about the legislation that we're kind of.
You can repeat what you said.
Oh, sure. Can you, I think people didn't quite hear you.
Okay, so what he said is he wants to know, like, why can't ACS, like, have like a couple of calls, right? Before they come out, right? So if I call
Like
this.
a requirement.
Yeah, the requirement would be like a couple of calls on that one person instead of that one call. And so we have like bills, like informed consent would get a physician to, because I don't know if anybody knows when you have your baby, they illegally test you without your knowledge. And you know about it when ACS is actually at your bedside. So we have informed consent where that would require for the physician to get consent from you to take your bodily fluids and your child's bodily fluids without your permission. You would have to sign for that, just like you sign for anything else.
Right. So I think Des is talking about another one of our bills today that basically all fall into this phrase that's been coined about like narrowing the front door. The Bronx County's position is that the family policing system should be abolished. Right. In community systems, community ideas, just like the ones that were given here about resources, that y'all should be the people who are making the choices about what happens and who gets support. In the interim, we have these different pieces of legislation to try to limit the amount of access ACS has. So one of them, informed consent, has to do with bodily autonomy. Another thing that kind of touches upon this reporting, right? You're talking about one person makes a report. Well, there's a piece of legislation that we're trying to work on called anti-harassment and reporting, because we know people use this system as a weapon, calling people on other people. They don't have to leave information, and are trying to move forward in a way where if you're going to call in something, you better at least leave your name, right? You should be held accountable for trying to call things someone. And to the point about mandated reporters, we were just at a hearing testifying about why mandated reporting is harmful, why why the people that you rely on for support can then have to call a system or want to call a system or can use that. And there's some energy for the idea of shrinking who can be there or abolishing that system altogether, right? And so I think, we're running out of time, but I think Des and I and Zoe and and Jesse and Miriam and all the folks on the S&P policy team will be around. Would love to hear more from you. So come say hi, share those ideas, and we'll tell you how to get involved. Sorry.
One last thing.
First, good afternoon. A question for you as a parent advocate, right? I'm not sure if it overlap in the courtroom, but have you ever tried to, you work with a family, to say, can you get support from other family members, but they can't because they're going to like domestic violence or domestic abuse, which sometimes domestic abuse is not physical, right? How do you work with that so ACS don't step in?
So you're saying that you're trying to make sure ACS doesn't step into a situation?
Yeah, by getting other like family members. So, like example, let's say between a child, let's say the mom and the child, right? And try and get like the auntie don't want to talk to the mom. There's like a domestic abuse going in there. So maybe that might be the answer, so ACS don't step in.
Oh, I see. So fair.
Yes, but I'm also talking about since the domestic abuse connect with domestic violence.
Okay, so, yeah, we tend to advocate, when I'm in there and ACS steps in, I try to advocate more for the kid to stay with family. If they want to remove the kid out of the home, I try to not get the kid removed out of the home at all. I advocate that hard, that I be trying so hard to keep that kid in the home with mom, because that's like the safest place for that child, right? But if they're adamant on filing and removing, asking the child to be placed out of the home, then I will go in and try to find like a family member that we can immediately, right then and there, I don't wait till we go to court. Can we use some resources that the parent may have right then and there that we can get somebody to take the child if ACS is like.
You know what I'm saying? Why if that family member like refuse?
That happens.
Okay.
That does happen. And unfortunately, if ACS still wants to go forward, then we have to, like, Sean will just go in there and do his try to some little magic. I'll try to find some other. Yeah, right. I'm trying, like, so I would try to find another family member that would want to take the child.
Okay.
So I would always look within the family realm instead of trying to get ACS to put the child in the children's center. Because if y'all don't know, the children's center is prison for our children. That is literally prison, right? Just leave that there, like that's prison.
So with that, if you want to talk to us about, ending that awful reality and how you can help advocate, share your ideas, just come find us. We'll be around.
And if anything was missed here, please don't forget, add it to a Post-it, put it up against that wall. Add it to a Post-it, add it to a Post-it, put it up there. If there's something that doesn't respond in the Post-it to something that you want to say, on this side there's 2 sheets. It's called the parking lot. Anything that we're unable to address on this end, feel free to put a Post-it up on this end on questions that you think that we should be thinking about. And don't forget, you don't have to agree with every single thing we say. Right? You don't have to believe in every single thing we say. But one of the things that we do ask for you to do is to be as open-minded as possible and give us your thoughts and ideas so that we can work collectively to move on these things. Thank you.
All right, hi everybody.
What's up?
My name is Rosa Cohen Cruz. I'm the Director of Immigration Policy. Fortunately, the rest of my team couldn't be here tonight, but Sophia and Carol are part of my team. They're amazing. One is sick and the other was in court. So Brittany has graciously offered to stand up and, support me up here. So what we're really all about is doing what New York can do to protect immigrants. As many of you probably know, the immigration system is federal, so there's a lot that in New York State and in New York City we can't do because it's the federal government that's making decisions about what kinds of things violate immigration laws and things like that. But we can decide how we want to use our city's resources and our state's resources to or to not work with ICE and immigration. And so what we're really all about is how do we use our city, how do we push our city and our state to stop collaborating with ICE, to stop putting people in ICE detention, to stop profiting off ICE detention, and what can we do to keep many of our most vulnerable residents safe from being funneled into the ICE pipeline? Because when someone gets arrested, when someone has ACS contact, when someone, just has a police stop, that can trigger the beginning of a process that you can't walk back from. No matter what happens with those other cases, people can end up being put into deportation proceedings, end up in ICE detention, which looks exactly the same as prison and jail, and can be deported. And critically, in New York State, I'll just say that ICE actually relies on a network of jails that are used for jail purposes in different counties around the state to increase their bed space, to have more beds to put immigrants simply because they weren't born in this country. And what we learned is that actually the more beds that exist in a community, the more likely it is that ICE will have aggressive enforcement tactics in that community. There was a report that came out called "If You Build It, ICE Will Fill It," and that literally tells us that the more beds there are, they're gonna fill it. They're gonna fill it, and so one of the key ways that we can prevent ICE from being more aggressive is by limiting their bed space, making them have to make more difficult decisions about putting people in detention. And we're not alone in this fight in trying to change the way our state interacts with ICE. There are a lot of other states that are doing this. New Jersey actually passed a law, and I'm gonna get into the laws a little bit later, like the really nitty-gritty of them, but New Jersey actually passed a law that said that ICE could not use private facilities or jails in that state. Now, some stuff happened with that law, we'll talk about it more later, but the fact that New Jersey did it before New York, as a born and raised New Yorker, I'm personally offended by that. That's wrong, that's not how it should go, and so I feel that, and a lot of us in the community really believe that it's time for New York to stand up and say, we're not gonna be complicit anymore into funneling people through these systems into a horrible detention system that separates families, that takes people out of communities, that makes it so people can't work and support their families and their neighbors, and that overall is just devastating to our community. So that's really what the immigration team is about. Now, I will mention before we move on, there's a lot of talk right now in the state and in the city about immigration and the so-called migrant crisis. And in our policy team, obviously, we are talking about this. A lot of the things that we are talking about is how do we make sure, what are the different pieces that need to come into play to protect vulnerable people in the city, whether they've been here for a day or 60 years. What are the critical things that everybody needs to thrive? And the crisis is really, in our view, a crisis of priorities, a crisis of mismanaged policies on the city level. And so we're really trying, and we see the ways that all of these, the same systems at play that you're hearing about today are also operating in the background to funnel people who are new and more vulnerable into detention and criminalization. And we see that with the 60-day shelter rules. We're seeing people getting put on the street, becoming more vulnerable to police contact and all sorts of other things that funnels them into these other systems. So that's sort of our overview. I know that's a lot. We'll jump into it all later, but let's talk a little more.
You want to do a question? Sure. So I also want to touch on the narrative change portion of it a little bit, because I do think that's a really important part. As Rosa said, the migrant crisis is a hot button topic right now, and it really depends on talking about people's humanity, right? We have a lot of resources in this city. We have a huge budget. And a lot of this depends on people fighting against each other about a limited amount of resources. There's enough resources for us to give people rights. There's enough resources for us to give people food. If we have billions of dollars to give to our police department, we have money to make sure that people have shelter, regardless if they're from this state or not. So I just want to make sure that we set the stage for when we're talking about immigration, because we know that it's a hot button topic. We know that it's a big deal in New York City. We know it's a big deal in the Bronx. And a lot of this looks at us fighting each other, fighting people that we feel like don't belong in the city because they weren't born and raised here, fighting people that we feel like shouldn't be here because of the way in which the federal immigration system is set up, right? So we just want to make sure that we're looking at people's humanity, because that's the basis of all of this. So with saying that, when you think about immigrant detention, what comes to mind?
Wrongful arrest.
Wrongful arrest?
Separation of families.
Prison?
Prison?
Yeah. I heard separation from families, prison, wrongful arrest.
Your uncle getting deported? Anything else?
It's a cage. It's a cage for immigrants.
And also, a lot of the things that you all are bringing up right now are similar to what was brought up within FDP. So I want you to look at the trends, right? When you talk about separation of families, ACS also separates families, right? The criminal legal system also separates families. ICE detention separates families. This is not by accident.
And all these systems also work together, which is kind of a big piece that we're about here, because we see the way they interplay. You see someone get kicked out of a shelter and put on the street, In the shelter, you have mandated reporters calling ACS. That starts a whole case with them. And then if they're in removal proceedings or starting their deportation case, what happened in family court could impact that potentially. So there's a whole way that these systems connect. Similarly, when someone's arrested and fingerprinted, that information is shared with ICE, and that can start them down on a path towards deportation. So we see all these things coming together and really making people even more vulnerable.
So our next question is, should ICE work in collaboration with the NYPD to detain people? So why not?
I feel like it's not fair to people because a lot of people, they come to America and especially New York City for better opportunities. And I feel like they're like shutting people out of having a better opportunity here just because like they weren't born here or something like that. I feel like it's just not fair.
Especially for a city that calls itself a melting pot, right?
You need to get tired, you're poor, you're hungry.
I saw
Mayor
someone in the
Adams said
back.
that today.
We're supposed to be a sanctuary city, so if they're, and ICE is what, federal?
Yeah.
NYPD is city, so who's protecting who? Who should be protecting who?
Say it for the ones that didn't hear it.
I want to say something real quick. I just find it really interesting how when European immigrants were coming here, they were welcomed with open arms, whether they were from Ireland, it did not matter. They were welcomed with open arms, but yet now we are villainizing the black and brown folks coming here. Like it is by design, just to reiterate what Brittany was saying earlier.
Thank you very much. Piggybacking on what Chris is saying, I heard a rumor, and I'm researching this right now. I heard that there are more immigrants coming from Canada than from the Mexico, South America. And there's someone who's researching that at the NYU Immigration Service Center. And we're getting the results on that statistically. So what you're saying is very important, okay? The United States is a country of immigrants. And immigrants have been coming here from the very beginning of the history of this country. Okay, so that means that why all of a sudden is the immigration an issue? Is it because these people are brown skinned? You know, we have to think about the fact that there are unsolved issues in this dear country. Like we just finished celebrating Martin Luther King's birthday, didn't we? Now in January, but the problem is that we're still in the middle of a civil rights movement. Yes. And there are issues that have not been solved.
Thank you, everybody, for listening.
I want to piggyback on what you said. There's always been a problem with black and brown people coming in this country from the beginning. My grandparents came from Barbados. I know. The problem is in those days, it was balanced with the white folks coming in. There was more of them coming in than us. Now, white folks aren't coming in. It's us. So now they have to pick on somebody, and we get to be picked on.
It was nice of JB, Mr. Christopherleonjohnson, Joseph Biden to bring their immigrants here. I don't know why he stood with Eric Adams and Teddy Long. I don't know what's gotten. I don't know what's gotten into not by the quarter. Eric Adams, A.K. Teddy Long, Joseph Biden, JB, Mr. Inflation Man, Kathy Hogan, the past wife of Laverne Shirley, and Donnie T. Don Trump, A.K. the Mod Squad. One wants immigrants here, the other doesn't. I don't get this. The four-piece about they could pass on the bar squad. If you ever noticed that, they have the same philosophy, the same mentality. You just don't see it, but if you look back, read between the lines, you'll see they act the same way. Nothing has changed since they were elected. Earlier today, Teddy Long made his 2024 City State Address at Hostess College. Don't know what happened. We participated around outside of buildings. We told him, as the current mayor, at the 110th mayor, who was officially sworn in Times Square on January 1, 2022, I was there, so I over 12 hours on the bathroom. That's another story. Whether you up for that charge is another story. We were just telling him that while you're still in office, if you're sincere about getting stuff done, then you need to do just that. Because so far, all he did was imitate his predecessor, who could pass for the Bee Gees, Frankenstein, and Big Bird.
You know, I appreciate that you brought up his predecessor, because I want to say that during the Trump administration, people who were aligned with immigrants, I will say, felt more motivated to step up. The city actually passed, and the state passed some laws, more protective laws, and now we have this new narrative, not new, but this stronger narrative that is very anti-immigrant, this resource scarcity idea, and the state and the city and legislators are not acting like it's still the same thing happening. We actually have more people in immigrant detention now than we did at the end of the Trump administration. So that's something to chew on. I just want to say one quick thing about ICE detention too. We talked about how it looks like a prison, how it is prison. We talked about how families are separated. There's also a really real issue that's happening right now. There's a jail, I don't know, not that far from here, like less than an hour from here. It's called Orange County Jail. And that's where most New York City residents are in ICE detention. It's in the local jail, and they have a big contract with ICE. And right now, in that jail, there is a COVID-19 outbreak. And when there's a COVID outbreak in detention or jail, people can't see their lawyers, people can't see their families, people are quarantined. But the jail, 4 years into the pandemic, still hasn't figured out how to even connect people consistently with their counsel. So that means that people can't meet with their attorneys to prepare their cases. There's been all sorts of issues with the electronic video conversation. I can have a Zoom with someone on the other side of the world right now if I want, but we can't figure out how to get immigrants in ICE detention to talk to their lawyers, where that's supposed to be a guaranteed right. So this is a real issue. It's become it's an issue that we keep uplifting because we, in our direct services capacity in the immigration practice, are part of providers that do represent the people in detention in New York State. And we can't speak with our own clients when they're quarantined, when, whatever issue's going on in the jail, when there's a lockdown, it just keeps breaking down over and over. And what that ultimately means is that people stay in detention longer. And the very last thing I'm going to say about detention is the purpose of detention. The stated purpose is to make sure people show up to court. But we also know that 88% of immigrants go back to court. It's not an actual issue. And that number increases when they have access to counsel. So the real reason, if you think about it, that immigrants are in detention is because ICE is hoping they'll give up. ICE doesn't want people to keep fighting their cases. The conditions are torturous. They want to make it so bad that people feel that it would be better to be deported away from their families in some cases to situations that would risk their lives, than to spend another day in detention. And I think that's another thing to think about, the way the detention system is designed to make people give up their rights. And it's different than a lot of other legal systems, because the only barrier in some cases to someone achieving freedom is giving up on their case. So I think that's the thought I'll leave you on. I know we need to move on to the next group, but this is the issue that we are really trying to champion this year. And I guess we can go through the policies maybe afterwards, or I'll just quickly name the bills that we're doing, and then I'll pass it to CDP. Number 1, New York for All Act. That bill says state police and state law enforcement agencies can't information share with ICE. Really simple. It's like a disentanglement. We don't want collusion.
It also means people will feel safer going to schools and going to interact with other agencies because there's just a blanket law on who can and who can't share information. Number 2, the Dignity Not Detention Act. That's a bill that ends ICE contracts with local jails. That's something we can do in New York State. We can't end all ICE detention centers. We can't, and there's a federal detention center near Buffalo. We can't end that. But we can end the little hodgepodge of contracts that ICE relies on to increase their bed space. And number 3, ICE Out NYC, that's a city bill. It's 3 bills. It's basically 2 bills that would make it harder for NYPD and the Department of Corrections to share information with ICE. And then a 3rd bill that lets somebody sue the city if their rights are violated. Because what good is your rights if they're not enforceable? So that's our platform this year. And
Good evening. Waiting for the criminal defense policy team to come up here. My name's Eli Northrup. I'm the director of policy for the criminal defense team. Chris, want to introduce yourself? We can go down the line.
Sure. My name's Chris Rivera. I'm an adolescent defense attorney and the policy counsel, another policy counsel for the criminal defense practice.
Hello, good evening, everyone. My name is Zakiya Workino. I am a social worker in CDP and also policy advocate.
Hey everyone, I'm Conrad Blackburn. I'm a criminal defense attorney and I'm also a policy advocate in the criminal defense practice.
So you can go back for a second. This is us up in Albany last year. Zakiya didn't quite make it. But we promise you she's been there. She was there last week. You can go to the next slide. So, as you heard, we're criminal defense, adolescent defense lawyers and social workers. We have over 100 criminal defense lawyers at the Bronx Defenders. We represent people in criminal court. And this team goes up to Albany, along with some of our other colleagues. We go to city council. We advocate, based on the things we've seen, to shrink the size of the criminal legal system, to increase transparency and due process in that system, and with the goal of abolishing it, making it non-existent. We don't believe, from what we've seen, that policing and incarceration increase public safety. We know that it doesn't. So a lot of the efforts that we've undertaken, it's an effort to slowly shrink this system and change the way that it functions. And we'll talk to you guys about specific bills and stuff, but I wanted to talk a little bit about achievements that we've worked on so far. The Bronx Defenders was one of the groups that really worked to legalize adult use cannabis in New York State, not just to legalize it, but with an eye towards repairing the harm done by decades of criminalization and racist enforcement. And also to help people get licenses. And I know there's people in this room right now that we've worked with from the Bronx Cannabis Hub. If you guys can stand up, these are people that are gonna be the entrepreneurs. These are the entrepreneurs. This is what the face of the cannabis in New York should look like. People that have been harmed by the policing of it. We also worked on bail and discovery reform, essentially ensuring that the population of Rikers Island is smaller, working towards closing that place, which makes our city so much less safe, where everybody who spends any time there, it comes out less safe and more destabilized than they were when they went in. And police accountability and transparency. And we can talk about that in more detail, but we wanted to ask some questions first. The first is a multiple choice question. How many legal cannabis dispensaries exist right now in the Bronx?
0.
0?
Yeah.
You say 2? 0? All right, so look, legal, yeah. No, the answer is 2. Yeah, there's a lot more than 2, but right now there's only 2 licensed dispensaries. It's been a really long, slow road to open these up, and that's been an issue for some of the entrepreneurs that are here. Even though it's legal right now, most of the stores that are operating are unlicensed. And there's some people that have really worked really hard to go through the licensing process and are still waiting on getting their licenses and being able to open their store. Next question, and Chris, do you want to take this one?
Yeah, sure. All right, so want to hear from the crowd. What does public safety look like to you? You guys can just shout it out.
Community policing?
You said more police? Okay. Anybody else?
Education about racism. I feel that not just like white people, Hispanics, are very racist against black people. Like they feel like it's, I don't know what the term is, but it's like a green light on black people. You know what I mean? Like it's okay,
Right.
Because everyone else is doing it, so
Mm-hmm.
we might as well.
Okay, good point.
Share violence organizations like Guns Down, Life Up, Save Our Streets, and brag.
Even though I'm the one that brought the gang of youth in here, I'm gonna say, a space where adults can communicate with youth in the supermarket, outside, without it becoming an extremely violent situation. Like old school, where your neighbor can give you advice and let you know what's going on and help keep you on track without being met with passive aggressiveness or just aggressive aggressiveness.
More familiar faces in NYPD. Can I elaborate? More familiar faces in NYPD. I feel like, I haven't seen statistically that most of our police force come from outside of New York City, but I feel like if your neighbor was in the police force, they wouldn't harm you like how another person that came from Virginia coming into here, they wouldn't violate their rights or your rights,
Right.
Yeah.
That was 1970.
Great point.
I also feel that they shouldn't fund guns as much as they do now, because they're putting way too much funding into guns instead of other important things.
You've been talking about money a lot, so I feel like if you had the budget, what would you give the money to?
I would give it to more of the homeless people, because I feel that it's unacceptable that people are sleeping outside, especially during this type of weather. There's no reason, because at the end of the day, you guys were saying earlier, we're all human, and no human should be sleeping outside. We're not animals, it's just not fair.
I want to see investments in things other than the police. Our police budget is so big, and I guess this is building on what Symphony said, but I want to see things like free after-school programs, education for people, housing, employment, all of these other things besides just the police. Because when we rely on cars through a means of surveillance, that doesn't actually do anything to protect people, it just punishes them.
Oh, yeah,
I might date myself here, but when I was younger, what I see now is kids are fighting a lot. And that's because they don't have nothing to do after school. When I was younger, the supermarkets, the kids would go in there and pack the bags. And you never seen fights in the street because everybody was wanting to get that money. They took that from it, and those kids had nothing to do. So maybe if we let the supermarkets, let them kids pack the bag, help the ladies home, help the elderly home, that will keep them out of trouble.
Yeah.
I remember that vividly. You know what I mean? And maybe we should go back to letting the kids pack the bag in the supermarket.
Yeah, I'm listening to everybody, and you'll go back to where I grew up like she did. It was community. Like you said, the elders spoke to you. When I played on the block, if I did something down the street, Miss Brown spoke to me, Miss Kennedy spoke to me. By the time I got home, my grandmother knew. But it was community that raised everybody. What this young lady said about the police, I don't know if it was Beam or Wagner. They gave the cops and the fire department a pass. Because all city civil service is supposed to live in the 5 boroughs. But they gave the two groups, those two groups, a pass and they all went out to Long Island, Jersey, Connecticut, everywhere. Because like she said, when I grew up, there were cops on my block. Your brother wasn't gonna mess up because his best friend was a cop's son, and your families knew each other. So we need to go back to that kind of policing in the city where it's all community. But then we're gonna have to fight, like he said with press conference, Eric, to get stuff done. But that's something we need to think about.
Hi, I'm in agreement with all the ideas here tonight. Like you just said, back when I was a kid used to go to the supermarket, pack a bag, and there was a communication going on, like Kendall just said. The cop on our block knew all the families, and all the families knew them. So there was an open communication going on there. And I grew up right here in this neighborhood when everything was burned down. And it looked like World War III. I mean, we had to learn how to help each other out because the system failed us. And we came to that realization. And it was about one hand leading the other. Okay? And we were not supposed to be the kids that would make it, but we all made it. And we proved the system wrong. Okay? But remember something about our dear country. We can't send the kids to pack up the bags because the stores don't even give out bags anymore. Okay? So remember, we used to get bags for free. And there would be a kid there getting paid to pack up. So first we got to get the bags back into the store. And then, so I'm sorry to say, but this dear country of ours took a step backward. And I'm afraid we took a step backward instead of going forward. I saw that debate last night. The Republicans with this other guy who's running again, okay? And that was sad, what I saw. I'm sorry, our country went backward. Let's face reality here. So first we got to get the bags back at the store, then send the kids, and make sure that those are the local businesses in our community who are supporting us. Because there's something else. I'm seeing that all the stores that are opening in our communities, none of those owners belong to our neighborhood. Okay? There you go. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
I think we had two more hands in the back, but just to be a little bit more controversial, because I'm a little bit like that. Right? You mentioned something where you said taking guns off the street and all this other stuff. Every single person here has a Second Amendment right to bear arms. We are one of the only states as people of color that many of our folks are not allowed to bear arms. But if they can bear arms, why can't we? Just a thought. I said we're being a little bit more controversial. Doesn't mean I agree with that. What I'm saying is, I want you to think about that. Okay? So those who have extra comments or anybody wants to respond to that, feel free. But don't forget, we all have a right to bear arms. Second Amendment.
I would say one thing I think we are missing is more mental health providers. I think a lot of times when people call 911, they just need some type of help, and that help does not mean a man in uniform. So I'm not saying, I do not think they need to create a new number. I'm just saying our dispatchers need to be dispatching other people besides 911, fire department, and EMS.
Yes.
So I really think when we talk about divesting funds from NYPD, I think even NYPD would agree some of the stuff they're calling for, they are not qualified to handle because it is not a crime that is occurring.
Alright, so I'm gonna give it to about 2 more people because we got more questions. But I do want to say, I want to hear from more young people in the space, if we have more young people, because I'm going to shout some of you out. Makita has been with us for the past 2 years, I think. 2 years as an intern. And she keeps coming back, and I hope that she continues to come back. As a leader. And we're hearing from a lot of young people today, but that's important because the young people are really going to be who save us, right? We're hearing about a lot of after-school programs. We're hearing about what you would want to do with the budget, and we're hearing about what public safety looks like, right? When we talk about public safety, we want to make sure that people have opportunities to be able to do something outside of crime, to be able to do something that makes wages, that allows you to live the life that you want to live within New York City. So I do want to hear, again, from more young people in the space, as you all are here, and I'm going to give it to 2 more people.
Yes, as a 17-year-old kid, born in the Bronx, raised in the Bronx and Harlem, I believe that the youth definitely needs more economic opportunities. As I see a lot of my friends, you know, they want to get jobs, they want to make money, but they don't have the right role models to show them how to make money in stores and, you know, in companies. So they turn to the streets, and that's the only option to make money, you know, and then that leads to a whole different path towards cops, jail, the prison system, and all that. So I feel as if we just need more economic opportunities for the youth.
Yeah. Who knows how big the state budget, the proposed state budget for 2025 is in New York State? Anybody have a guess? Just a guess.
70
The
billion.
budget, the state budget for next year in New York State.
300 billion?
800 million?
Billion.
8 billion? It's $232 billion.
Wow.
For New York State. That's bigger than most countries. So when we talk about investing in opportunities for youth, we have it. It's how we choose to spend it. And that's what we all need to be paying attention to. Because when a governor comes out and says this is the budget, that's the priorities for the state. And if we're not paying attention and saying, no, I don't align with those priorities, then that's how it's gonna be. Clearly we have it. And a part of this is making sure you all know that we all have a voice. Part of what we do is try to bring people up to Albany, connect people with their elected officials so that they can use that voice, because those people work for you. And they're the ones that vote on that budget. So we're gonna talk a little bit about the different initiatives and the things we're working on, and we really wanna encourage all of you, if you're interested, to get involved, to actually come and do this, because it doesn't happen unless people go up and talk to these people up there. They don't listen unless you go and get in their face. So we'll go look to the next slide.
This is our last.
Oh, one more, sorry.
Sorry, and I'm usually one of those people who talks a lot, so I didn't want to say anything, but because you brought up the whole making sure you're putting the power in the youth, I have to kind of a little testimony. So Jasmine Uribe, I was an intern here some time ago. And then I kept coming back. So I want to say one of the things that kind of created that safe space is giving the youth the mic, giving the youth the space. Again, this is about 2 decades ago, so because of the work that I've done here, because of these meetings, because of these resources and the follow-through, I've worked with city agencies, I've worked in after-school programs, and what I've done is continue to create those spaces. So this is what we do. This is how you create it, having those conversations, continuing to have those youth. Because in about 2 decades, they're the ones going to be creating those policies. They're the ones going to be creating those programs. They're the ones going to be watching your kids at those after-school programs. They're going to be teaching your kids. So give them the mic. At the end of the day, give them the opportunities, especially when they're saying that they want it, provide that. Yes, we have DYCD and summer youth and all those things, but are you helping them fill out their application? Are you helping mom get the working papers? Are you assisting in making sure they know where to get that? Just as we are those people, we are those friends, we know how we do. So making sure that you're supporting those when those resources come out, when those things are happening, tap into your cousin, the nephew, the whatever. Meet out. This is what you're doing today, but we're filling this out together. Or push them to the Bronx defenders and somebody's gonna help them out here. But just making sure that you really are tapping into those resources because it's real. Right? And then again, thank you for the
Don't forget to put it on the post too, put it on the board.
We got another question.
Oh, okay. So how much does it cost to incarcerate one person in a New York City jail for 1 year?
67,000? Number one, 67,000.
I heard 67?
Yeah, 67,000.
To incarcerate one person
Yeah, 67,000.
for 1 year, it's $556,000.
What?
That's one person. One person for 1 year. And
That's great.
And yes, and Chris was saying, and they don't even have to be convicted of a crime. I wanted to address the point that someone brought up in the back about mental health. You have it spot on, because, and also you had mentioned, you were saying that you didn't want to create another number. There is another number. Everyone, if anyone is in mental health crisis, call 988. 988. And that's if someone is threatening harm to themselves or anyone else, if someone is having a mental health crisis, dial 988. And also, the good thing about 988 is they can, the mental health practitioners associated with that number, they can connect someone to further services, like transporting someone to the hospital. Now, I do want to say that when 988 dispatches someone to come and do a wellness check, that person will only evaluate them and say, oh, do you need to go to the hospital? And they will involve NYPD, but the thing is, NYPD is hearing from a mental health practitioner, so it's not NYPD coming in first, guns blazing, and then like, excuse my, I was gonna say curse word, but anyway, the idea is we want to prioritize resources for mental health and educating each other about mental health. We need to start talking about mental health more. And where else?
Okay, so we're going to start talking about some of our policy initiatives in CDP. The first one we'll start out with is the Communities Not Cages Coalition bill. And I see you with the hand back there. We're going to get to you, for sure. So Communities Not Cages Coalition is a coalition of organizations that is focused around decarceration. They have 3 bills currently that we are trying to get pushed. It's the EMMA, Eliminating Mandatory Minimums Act, Second Look Act, and the Earned Time Act. So we'll start out with EMMA. Who here knows what a mandatory minimum is? Shout it out if you know what it is. What's a mandatory minimum? Go ahead, shout it out, don't be shy. Exactly, a legal minimum amount of time that somebody has to do in prison by law. The law says they have to do it in prison. What EMMA does is eliminates that, right? It does not set a mandatory floor. It erases that. It also gives judges the power to take plea deals that they would not have been able to take otherwise. Right now, for felonies, judges can only take plea deals 2 levels down from a felony that somebody is charged with. By law, they can't do anything lower than that. EMMA would eliminate that and would allow judges to give people sentences and give people felonies more than 2 levels down. It also erases New York's 2 and 3 strikes law. I know that's not what they call it, but that's exactly what it is. It's a 2 and 3 strikes law, just like California. They call it predicate offender and persistent offender here in New York. What EMMA does is it erases that as well. So it allows for judges to have much more room to give people lighter sentences in New York. It would be a huge game changer because what mandatory minimums do is it scares people from going to trial, right? Even if they have a winnable case, the simple fact that they could lose deters people from going to trial, and they don't get to realize their full constitutional rights that they have. So EMMA is an amazing bill that I hope gets passed. The second one is the Second Look Act. What that does, it allows judges to resentence people after a certain amount of time has been served. So if your sentence is more than 10 years, actually more than 20 years, at the 10-year mark, you can go to a judge and ask the judge to resentence you. If your sentence is between or lower than 20 years, when you serve half your sentence, you can go to the judge and ask the judge to resentence you. The judge will have to hold a hearing. You are entitled to a lawyer, and the judge has to hear evidence. It'll create a presumption that you should actually be released. And it's a rebuttable presumption, so the prosecution would have to prove to the judge why you shouldn't be released. Another great bill. The third one is the Earned Time Act. Does anyone know how much good time that you get in New York right now?
85?
1/7. 1/7. And that's if you can get it. It's only available to a small amount of people. 1/7 of good time in New York. We're behind the curve in states like Mississippi, Florida, way behind the curve. That's in New York. So what this bill would do is it would upend that. It would allow people to get 50% good time, and it would also change the merit time and it would allow people to get merit time and good time credits that are not able to right now because they can't do certain programs at the prison that they're at. So these are 3 amazing bills that would change the whole legal landscape of criminal law in New York and would help decarcerate.
We're going up to Albany on Tuesday. All 4 of us, probably some other people in this room, for the Community's Not Cages campaign. If you're interested in going, there's going to be buses leaving from the city, taking you up, taking you back, feed you lunch, talk to legislators. That's happening. It'll happen a few more times over the course of this legislative session. So if you're interested, come find me afterwards and we can get you connected.
There's also a training tomorrow night via Zoom if you are interested in learning more about Communities Not Cages. So treatment not jail. Treatment not jail is a bill that would expand treatment courts across New York State to include folks with mental health concerns. And the reason that's important is because right now jails are being used as mental health facilities, specifically Rikers Island. And right now, about half the population on Rikers Island has been flagged for mental health concerns. And that number that we saw earlier, $556,000 spent each year, that money could clearly be used for supporting community organizations to support folks who have mental health concerns. So treatment not jail would allow people to have access to substance use treatment, mental health supports pre-plea, meaning they would not have a prison sentence hanging over their head if they disengaged in treatment for any reason at all. I just want to say that anyone who has substance use disorders, the recovery and getting stable from that is not a linear process. And this is what treatment not jail acknowledges. It allows people the opportunity to go through their process and not be thrown in prison for God knows how many years just because they're trying to find stability in their lives. And I also want to say that, Governor Hochul said that 24 million was going to go into mental health courts. That was her proposed number out of the billions from the budget. But for every dollar that the state invests in mental health, the state saves $2.21. So I mean, it's a win if treatment not jail gets passed.
Just to quickly add on to that, I recently had a client just in that exact circumstance who did not have a support system at all. No family. She had 4 children who were removed from her custody because she struggled with addiction. She got 2 chances, and now she's being sent upstate for 2 to 4 years for nonviolent offense, for stealing, which we all know is associated with an addiction, right? People will do anything to feed their addiction, especially when you don't have a support network, which is something we continuously try to explain to the judge. We also had insurance issues. It took us 8.5 months to get this woman into a program on a nonviolent offense, right? Because of her insurance, because she had Medicare, because she had Medicare and Medicaid. This is so powerful. That's easily one of the hardest cases I had to do, having a woman, a mother, someone that doesn't have a violent bone in her get sent upstate, hysterically crying next to me. It's not okay. We need this. So what I'm gonna focus on are the youth justice bills, right? So we have the Right to Remain Silent and the Youth Justice and Opportunities Act. Who has heard of the Right to Remain Silent? All right, cool. So this is a bill, who's heard of the Central Park 5?
Oh yeah, one of the country.
Right, and so that's a case where you had 5 young teenagers have their youth stripped from them. They were wrongfully convicted, and now they've been exonerated. But One of the main reasons is because they did not know they had a right to remain silent, right? And most young people don't. Most adults don't know that, right? And most adults don't know that in order to invoke your right to remain silent, you have to say, I want to remain silent. You can't just stay silent, or they're gonna keep questioning you and keep questioning you and keep questioning you. Same thing when it comes to an attorney. You have to say, I want an attorney for all questioning to stop immediately. And remember, the body cam's on. So as an attorney, when I hear that, when I hear those magic words, I want an attorney, you're like, yes, let's freaking go. Like, completely quiet in the office, you're like, shit, okay. But I swear to God, it is music to our ears because it gives us an opportunity to actually to enforce your rights, right, later down the line. And so what the Right to Remain Silent bill would do, well, let me just say real quick. Youth are 3 times more likely to falsely confess than adults, right? They're easily manipulated, as we know, and approximately 90% of young people interrogated by the police waive their Miranda rights. They don't understand them, right? They don't understand the consequences that come down the line. And right now, the police are allowed to lie to kids in order to manipulate them to confess. They're allowed to interrogate a child without their parent present. They are not required to explain to the child why they're questioning them, and they don't have to tell the child that they can end questioning at any moment, right? What the Right to Remain Silent bill will do is require a child to meet with an attorney prior to any interrogation or questioning by an NYPD officer or law enforcement officer. And that consultation with the lawyer is a non-waivable requirement. They cannot waive that. Any statement taken in violation of this requirement cannot be entered against that child later down the line, right? So it's a massive bill, and it's gonna eliminate, well, not completely, but it is going to address the significant issues that we have with children being taken advantage by the NYPD. Next bill is, just to remind everyone, well, not remind, let everybody know that on February 13th, we have the Right to Remain Silent Lobby Day. We'll all be going up to Albany. We have buses leaving from New York City. We will speak to your schools, and we will let them know that this is a civic engagement opportunity. We want you to speak with your legislators. So please, if you want to join us on that lobby day, want to get a nice day out of school, free lunch, breakfast, it's a great day, guys, and you'll get to be able to speak directly to your legislators. So please let me know if you would like to come. It's on February 13th. You can talk to me afterwards. I'll send you the RSVP links. And so that's that bill. Next one is the Youth Justice and Opportunities Act. Now, who has heard of youthful offender status? Okay, right? Also known as YO. I realized that one of my clients knew what YO was, but only by the words YO. So I'm explaining youthful offender status. Like, oh, I know that. That's YO. So now I understand that. That's just a terminology kids use. So YO just stands for youthful offender status. That allows young people under the age, 19 and under, to avoid a criminal record. You only get one shot though in New York, right? You can burn your YO if you make another mistake as a young person. What the Youth Justice and Opportunities Act will do is eliminate that, right? You will give young people the opportunities that they need, the second chances and third chances that they need, understanding that their brain is not fully developed. What this bill will also do is create a young adult status, which would be for young people up until the age of 26, under the age of 26 years old. It's going to be different sentencing than YO, but it's still another opportunity to allow young people whose brains are not fully developed, which neuroscience has told us over and over again, the opportunity to avoid a criminal record. It also expands the amount of programming, mental health access, a lot of the things that we discussed today. And it'll also make all misdemeanors automatically YOs without even having to request it from a judge, right? Because right now, judges can pick and choose who they can give YO, right? This bill will allow that to expand to many more young people. And, it can be applied retroactively, meaning for all the young people who are not getting the benefit of this opportunity now, right? If this bill is passed, then we can go back to those cases and make sure that they get the opportunities that all the kids moving forward are gonna get. All the way up to people up to the age of 25 years old. You will get that record erased, right? And so, 2 major bills. That lobby day is on February 6th, 2 weeks from now. And I'll be going up again. We have maybe over 100 kids going up. Again, we will speak to your principals. Just let us know, and we want you guys up there. They want to hear from you, okay? They don't want to hear from us as much. I promise you. Like, You guys are where it's at. So young people, please come up, state either 2-6, 213, or both. And there'll be training. You don't need any legal experience, no policy experience. We just need you there. So that's it.
I made a promise that I would let somebody ask a question. I don't want to forget. I know I made you a promise.
So I'm gonna go back to the mental health. You said the number is 988.
Yes.
So, and you also said that police don't go in blazing, but I know going as far back as Eleanor Bumpers, they do. My question is this. They tell everybody dial 911 for wellness checks, all of that. Why are you not advertising? I know it's not you personally, but why they're not advertising the 988 number for mental health wellness checks so cops don't go in blazing?
That's a good question.
That's a great question. And as a matter of fact, when I was walking around, I live here in the Bronx, so I'm walking around my neighborhood, and, you know, speaking of advertising it, there was this itty bitty sign in a parking lot, on a post in a parking lot. And I was like, what? Sorry. I was like, where in the world? I don't know why they don't advertise it. I don't know why they don't. And I mean, maybe that's something that we need to advocate for. Is having, because I mean, you know, so we know that 988 exists.
They'd rather cops arrive.
We're gonna take a quick pause. 1 second. One moment, please. One moment, please, and por favor. So I'm gonna tell you just like this. We only got a couple minutes left. And so what happens is that when we're having a good time, this is what is happening. But I see some of y'all, I'm looking, what I told you, I be looking. And I see some of your faces, and I need a little bit more energy. Because I want some of these young folks, hopefully you'll allow us to go about 10, 15 minutes over so that we can continue to have a robust discussion. But before we do that, I want to hear you. So those who know me, y'all know what I like to do, right? What I like to do. Right? So I want to see how many of y'all been doing this. We be in the streets, right? And I want to hear you respond to me. So when I say, show me what democracy looks like.
This is what democracy looks like.
Show me what democracy looks like.
This is what democracy looks like.
Show me what democracy looks like.
This is what democracy looks like.
Show me what democracy looks like.
This is what democracy looks like.
When our communities are under attack, what do we do?
Stand up like that.
When our communities are under attack, what do we do?
Stand up like that.
When black people are under attack, what do we do?
Stand up like that.
When Latinos are under attack, what do we do?
Stand up like that.
When trans are under attack, what do we do?
Stand up like that.
When humans are under attack, what do we do?
Stand up like that.
And how many Latinos we got in here? Let's see, how about this? El pueblo unido. El pueblo unido jamás será vencido. El pueblo unido jamás será vencido. El pueblo unido jamás será vencido.
I just want the 988 problem is a problem of capacity. They don't have the civilian staff to respond to the calls. What you mostly get is someone to talk to you on the phone, but they're still sending the police. So we have a huge amount of work to do to build a non-police crisis response that cities all over the country have already done. New York is way behind the curve. When you call for a mental health crisis in Denver and Albuquerque and Seattle and Houston,
Oregon.
They don't send the police. They still do here in New York.
I know an agency where money can come from.
All right, we're done. We're gonna move on to the next section, but please come find us if you want to get involved. We'll be here afterwards, all right?
burning questions, anything that you want to ask the policy and organizing team, anything that we haven't touched base on, we want to hear from you. No questions?
Any thoughts, last comments, suggestions, ideas?
More post-its. Y'all fill out more
Anything
post-its?
you learned today? Anything you came away with from today?
See you, bro.
It sounds like the best way to support is to head over to Albany with you guys on the day.
Who wants to go to Albany?
Who's never been to Albany?
Who's never been to Albany? Then you definitely want to go to
Who's
Albany.
never been in a meeting with your representative before? You've never met anybody who represents you on the state level, on the local level, on the federal level. So we're gonna plug something here. So we go to Albany once a year. So this is one of our big events. It's the Community Policy Summit, and then we have the Bronx Defenders. We go to Albany once a year to talk about our policy agenda. We don't have the date as of yet, but I want all of you to come up to Albany. Like Chris was saying earlier, they don't want to hear from us anymore. We're up there all the time. They get our phone calls, they get our emails. What really matters is when you all as constituents go up and talk to your elected officials. As someone who has interned and worked in an elected official office before, I know that when you call, they have to take that information down. When you call and you talk about a bill, they have to take that information down, and they keep track of it. So please come with us up to Albany. Please talk to your elected officials and join us for our BXD Lobby Day. The date will be dropping soon. We're gonna get one last question and then we're closing. One question, and we done.
Hey guys, my name is Star Fernandez. I work for the Bronx Defenders. I had the opportunity last year to go up to Lobby Day with our youth, and it was an incredible to witness because like Chris and the rest of the policy team said, like the youth up there in Albany talking to these legislators is so powerful and impactful. Especially just going up there and having like the full energy and the full force to go up there to again like make some noise. So it's so important, like impactful to again like have more youth going up there because again like they are mostly listening to the youth and wanting to hear your voice. So Lobby Day is very important. So coming up February 6th, February 13th is so important. So and even again like our Bronx community is just so impactful to have, again, like us making noise in Albany. So let's do it. Let's go for it.
You get a running sign-in sheet if you're interested in going to Albany. Just put your name down on it. We'll have a series of dates, and I will personally give you a call to follow up on it, okay?
Just remember that nothing about us without us, right? So they shouldn't be making or passing laws without us sitting at these tables. Remember that. That's serious.
All right, I'm gonna keep, y'all can get ready to move, and I know there's a couple people that want to comment, so I'm gonna let them get their comments in, but that doesn't mean that I can stop you from leaving. But I will tell you before you leave, put up a post-it. Put up a post-it.
Earlier today, as the senator today, Audrey Ortiz mentioned bringing in the plastic bags. However, they were banned thanks to the former governor, Professor Dracula. And regarding Albany, consider running a bus trip there for caucus weekend between February 16 and 18.
You have to speak out so that
My question is, as January is Human Trafficking Awareness Month, what is Bronx Defender doing as awareness and or prevention of family and human trafficking?
You have to remember the word defender.
Listen, I feel you on that one.
Thank you all for coming out. Please don't forget to put up a post-it. Post-its are up against the reception. some Post-its to answer those questions so that we can look back at it? Oh, my bingo winners! My bingo winners! My bingo symphony! Wait. We got Elsa, Symphony, Andrea, Carrie. And Makita can take care of it.
All right, so I think that's it. We'll log off. That's it, everybody. That's it for today. Log off.